Previously on Chaos Head Noah. A short distance away, a white station wagon came to a stop. A man leaned out the driver's window. In his hand was a mirror. He seemed to be adjusting its angle. The light struck Kozue's eyes, again and again. Frightened, she raised her hands to block the light, dashing across a pedestrian scramble in order to escape. Her mind ran rampant with terror and disorder. She wanted to get home as quickly as possible. She did not want to be here. Tears streamed down her face. It has to be a coincidence. She desperately repeated these words to herself, wiping away the tears of her fingers. Just then, light assailed her eyes once again. Its glare dazzled her, violently piercing her gaze. The car from earlier had followed her. Like I said, targeted. This time, only the driver's arm protruded from the window, and in his hand, he still held that very same mirror.
瀬戸内の花嫁最高
The voice echoed once again. She could not understand how or why, but the man was speaking of things related to her painful past. She began to tremble. It frightened her to even so much as look at the man. She slowly crouched down in the spot, covering her ears. It's all coincidence. This is all one big coincidence. She continued silently chanting this to herself, all the way until nightbreak from the looks of it. As she sat there, crouching in place, an hour passed. Many people had passed by, but none tried to speak to her. When she finally managed to timidly raise her head, she found that the man was long gone. She gripped him by the back of the head, grabbing a fistful of hair, and forced him upright. She accomplished this despite the immense disparity in their physical appearances. Lacking the willpower to resist, tears welled up in his eyes as he begged for mercy from the innocent little girl. Kozue's answer was a swift denial, but it was not one she voiced aloud. She simply mouthed the one word a letter at a time with her small mouth. No. Lifting it above her head, the gargantuan sword roared as it approached the man. With one blow, his jaw was pulverized. His shrieks reverberated throughout the alley. The man was blown away and then collapsed in a heap. Blood would have splattered all over Kozue's clothes, but she used her blade to shield herself, allowing her to avoid such an event entirely. With a nod of satisfaction, Kozue erased her sword. She then glimpsed at Nishijo Takumi, who was collapsed in the corner of the alleyway. She's such a good attack dog. Somebody should give her a good head pat. She lost all willpower to run. No matter where she ran, they would always find her. As if it were reading her mind, the car would always anticipate where she would be. Sinking to the ground, she cradled her head in her arms. Within her heart, she cried out for salvation. But in the end, not a soul came to her rescue. Even as Kozue began to stagger away in a fit of tears, the vehicle remained parked. And to the very end, Whoever was inside made no attempt to show themselves. Someone, save me. Please. Remy, where did you go? Weren't you supposed to protect me? She is! Just not you. No, I couldn't rely on Remy anymore. I'd even gone to school today just to see her, but she hadn't been there. Almost like she was never there to begin with. So, I had to find someone else. Someone else who I could rely on to protect me. And the first person that came to mind was...
最近渋谷はますます物騒だよ。
Called it.
昨日も怖そうなゴキゴキ男たちに拉致されそうになっちゃったから、ドカドカドカーンってしてやったのら。
Kozupi. She was as far removed from normal as could be. Understatement. And also a pretty big idiot. A big idiot that could tear you in two. But because of that, something told me that if I had to depend on her, she might actually hear me out. Kozupi, can you hear me?
はいはい、なんでしょう。
I need your help. If I don't get help fast, someone is going to kill me.
殺されちゃうの？
Yeah. That's why I want you to protect me. You can use your D-sword.
それより。
If it's payment, don't expect much from him. This is the same man here that's tried to pay off Sena with Crunchy Coons in her route.
たくみさん、コズピーのことバカそうって思ってるでしょ。
Well, Takumi, you don't think she's a dummy, do you? You don't think she's just a dumb little attack dog that will go bow wow wow and nip at the ankles of your enemies at the snap of your fingers, do ya? Do ya? Huh? Huh? Oof. Exposed. And now you... Well, she'll definitely hear that, for sure.
やっぱりたくみちゃんひどいの。
Yeah, he is kind of a jackass.
プレゼントはこれなの。
Oh. Didn't know you... is this handmade? Didn't know you were into that. She happily pulled out a number of fanciful accessories from her bag, each one made up of a bunch of colorful beads. The hell are those? Bead jewelry, son!
ブチュブチュさんです。
Clickety-clackities. Somehow that's just the perfect name to call them.
ブレスとか携帯のストラップとか指輪もあるしヘアピンもチャームもあるよ。
Did you make all these? By hand?
違うよ。コズピーが手芸をやろうとするとぐちゃぐちゃドカーってなっちゃうのら。
Oh.
これはね、ママが作ってくれるんだよ。コズピーがビーズ大好きだから全部ブチュブチュさんなのら。
It wasn't just Shogun. There were other people there. Not just 2 or 3. It felt like there were at least 10. They were all taking pictures of their phones in perfect unison. The sound of the shutters echoed off the walls and coiled into my ears. This wasn't possible. A delusion like this was just that. A delusion. If I peeked outside, surely nobody would be there. It was all just some simple hallucination. Sure, the container walls were pretty thin, but there was still no way I should have been able to hear the shudders, or the laughter, or the wheelchair. And definitely not this clearly. I didn't have the courage to go outside and check for myself. Fear overwhelming me, I burst into tears and wrapped a blanket around my head in an attempt to cover my ears. Don't come in. 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 The sound of the wheelchair. The sound of Shogun's laughter. The sound of cell phone shutters. Had those actually been real? Had someone actually been outside my base until only a short while ago, taking pictures and uploading them with their phone? The latest post was titled, "The Man of the Hour." Timestamp read to 12:14 a.m. And right now, it was 12:21 a.m. Their last status update had only been 7 minutes ago.
嘘だよ。嘘に決まってる。
Who was the man of the hour supposed to be? Who the hell could it be? I'll give you a hint. You can find him in a mirror. I really didn't want to look. But I just couldn't bear not to. I'd never be able to calm down otherwise. I snapped my gaze to the door and back. I had to make absolutely sure the lock was on correctly. And right after I did that, scared as could be, I clicked the latest status update. It was a picture of me. And so it continues. Greetings, my name's Neosekken, and welcome back to my Let's Play of Chaos Head Noah. So, I imagine Takumi is feeling particularly unsettled right now, given how things ended up playing out towards the end of the last episode. So I'm expecting him to come crying and sniveling to Kozupi for protection here within like 10 minutes. At max. Let's see if my prediction ends up being correct. The one halting her was a classmate of hers, Ninomiya Minako.
Orihara, ちょっと話があるんだけど。
Kozue winced at the clear animosity laced in her words. Moreover, Minako was not the only one there. 5 girls stood behind Minako, lying in wait. Oh shit. We got the alpha bitch and her estrogen brigade right behind her. This is not good. For them. 5 girls stood behind Minako, lying in wait. All of them were her classmates, but Kozue was unable to recall their names and faces.
いいよね。付き合ってくれるでしょ?
As she remained unresponsive and unsure what to do, Kozue's quivering shoulders were then shoved not by Minako, but by one of the other girls behind her.
ちょっと、なんとか言いなよ。
Feeling entrapped by the crowd of girls, tears began pouring from the corners of her eyes. Her captors were quick to take notice, growing even further agitated.
いちいち泣いてんじゃねえよ。いいからちょっと来なよ。
She refused to go with them, for she had a horrible feeling about the events to come. But when they grabbed her by both arms, she knew she no longer had a choice in the matter. You dumb broads, you have no idea what the hell you're getting yourselves into. Well, I hope they're not particularly attached to any of their limbs. They brought her out to the rooftop. 10 more girls were waiting up there. Nearly everyone was a classmate of hers. When she realized this truth, Kozue was left deeply confused. Kozue could predict very well what would happen from this moment. She could acutely feel the intense malice directed at her from those present. Kozue shook in fear from the sheer amount of negative delusions flowing into her. Despite her best efforts to endure, her tears simply would not stop flowing.
こいつもう泣いてんじゃん。
うわ、マジ？うざくない？
Even though Kozue had only just transferred to the school, her peers held nothing back in their barrage of insults. Of course, she was well aware of the bitter hatred the girls felt for her. Try as she might to block out their inner voices in the classroom, the other animosity they held was something she had been able to ignore. She was not something she had been able to ignore, But despite such contempt, nobody had ever approached her in this manner before. She tried to run, but being surrounded by so many of her classmates left her no route to escape with.
逃げようとしてんじゃねえよ。美奈子が話あるんだからさ、ちゃんと聞きな。
Prompted by her classmate's threat, Minako glared toward Kozue with intense hatred. Minako's demeanor was that of a tall, rigid model, providing a heavy contrast to Kozue's small, petite frame.
折原、あんたさ、大輔に色目使ってんじゃないわよ。
Oh, you're another one of Daisuke's whores, are you? Despite them talking as if she should have known it, the name Daisuke was not one she was familiar with. But these words that would defend her would never leave her mouth. She simply made herself small, shrinking to the ground in order to withstand the fierce chaos and confusion.
聞いてんの？うざいんだよ、あんた。人の彼氏に手出そうとしてんなよ。
Kozue frantically shook her head in denial. She had no recollection of this person at all. Then, she at last realized that the person they spoke of was her classmate, Misumi. If that truly was who they were referring to, then Kozue had never had any intention of leering at him. In truth, it was quite the opposite. His entirely overt ulterior motives were nothing but a source of vexation to her.
っていうか、前から折原のこと気に入らなかったんだよね。
ねえ、なんで喋んないの？可愛いこぶってんの？
はっきり言ってうざすぎだし、ムカつくし。
それとも男子とは話せても私たちと話すつもりないって？調子に乗ってんじゃねえよ。
なんか言えよ、ブース。
They pulled her hair. They struck her face. They shoved her shoulders. There was no escape. They would not let her. Bullying, beating up. Kozue shuddered in fear as those words floated through her mind. Save me, Seina-shan. Save me, Takumi-shan. Her inner voice cried out, but it was clear that help would not arrive anytime soon. Before she had even moved here to Tokyo, this was how it had always been. No matter how much Kozue wished for someone to help her, it would never come. She had no choice but to bear it. If it were only this much, she could bear it. But that thought was just as transient as the last. Someone's activating a NOA 2 terminal. From somewhere she could not quite discern, a noise faintly began to echo. The faces of her classmates immediately lost all expression. Each and every one of them reached into their jacket pockets in unison. Oh dear. And then, as if they had planned it beforehand, they all slowly retrieved something from within them. Each person held a handheld mirror. Mirrors of all manner of shapes and sizes. Simultaneously, each and every girl turned the surfaces of their mirrors toward Kozue. It was like a cult performing a ritual. Within each mirror, Kozue could be seen stricken with the utmost terror, each silver screen reflecting a girl with eyes convulsing uncontrollably.
お前は誰?
The nightmares that once plagued Kozue began to resurface. She was losing the self she knew. She could not stop trembling.
お前は誰? お前は誰?
お前は誰?
お前は誰? お前は誰?
お前は誰?
お前は誰?
お前は誰?
She shook her head violently into none. Her eyes wandered between each mirror. As her head shuddered and shook, the convulsion seizing her eyes continued.
お前は誰?
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 お前は誰? お前は誰? お前は誰? お前は誰?
Kozue tried to scream, but could only muster a feeble cry.
お前は誰?
お前は誰?
お前
I'll kill you, 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 I'll kill you! The dominance of dark, sickly delusions began to enshroud her mind. She then became cognizant of the D-sword clutched tightly in her hands. A faint beam of red light shone across the blade, flickering with a delightful shriek. Not a hint of its brutality was left concealed. Its mere aura fiercely intimidated all those who beheld it. Everything before it fell to ruin. Everything before it was consumed. Everything before it returned to nothing. And now, as it settled, her sword resided not in delusion, but in reality. Her once expressionless classmates awakened from their trance, greatly alarmed by what was unfolding. But by then, it was far too late. Tears pouring down her cheeks, Kozue let out a scream. Her eyes could no longer see. With a single step, Kozue staggered forward. Effortlessly, she raised the D-sword above her head. At the present moment, it was Minako who was in her path. What came next would be appropriately referred to as an immediate bisection. From the left arm to the right shoulder, her body was ripped apart. Oh dear. In regard to what happened to the girl, the word slash would have been far too disingenuous. Sickeningly extreme amounts of blood burst forth from her body. As she raised the D-sword aloft, this time, Kozue staggered backward. It was as if the sword itself had drawn her back. Her body moved about adroitly, almost as if it were dancing. Despite her remarkably petite frame, she swung the gigantic sword around with incredible ease. Despite being far past death, Minako's corpse was further desecrated in obscene acts of violence. The freshly split blood danced in the air along with Kozue and her sword, dyeing the concrete crimson. Kozue, sapped of any remaining strength, collapsed seconds later in unison with what had used to be Minako. She was sobbing her heart out, the tears forcing her eyes to remain closed. Faced with that horrific display, her classmates stared in a daze, their mouths hanging agape. Not a single one moved from where they stood. It was as if they could not comprehend what had just occurred. Swaying slowly, Kozue returned to her feet. Her head hung low as convulsive sobs assailed her. Pointing directly at her petrified classmates, blood trickled from her D-sword. The very next moment, innumerable shrieks ripped through the air, before disappearing into the sky forever. If what happened at a previous school ruined her life a good bit before, this most certainly will ruin it beyond repair. This is not good. Not good at all. Walking as fast as I could, I headed directly for my school. I kept my eyes out for anyone at all. If someone even dared to approach me, I'd run away as fast as I possibly could. I've been hyperventilating for forever now, wheezing again and again, my throat desperately gasped for air. The sweat beaded endlessly on my forehead. No matter how much I wiped it away, it just kept coming. I was just going to school. I was just going to school so I could get Cosby to help with whatever the hell this was. I needed her to fight the bastards that were trying to break me. Cosby would definitely do it. She was completely broken herself, after all. No, she wasn't actually before. She definitely will be now, I'm sure. I wanted to kill them. I wanted to kill them. Shogun and his cronies need to fucking die! There was no doubt in my mind that the people at my base yesterday had been Shogun and his underlings. They were finally cutting the bullshit, and now they were gunning in to finish the job. They targeted me, begun their extensive mission to wear me down, and now they were moving in to kill me in the sickest, vilest, most disgusting way they could possibly imagine. I couldn't take it. I didn't want to die, so I had to kill them before they killed me. That sound again. Yesterday, I heard the same exact creaking sound behind me. I whipped around, wincing in anticipation of what might come. And yet, not a soul was behind me. There was no wheelchair in sight. It couldn't have been a hallucination. I heard right fucking behind me. Was Shogun still attacking me? I broke into a mad dash. Knowing how was I going to stand around all alone. And yet, it followed me. The sound clung tightly to my back. I could hear it directly behind me as I ran. Stop it. Get away. Stop chasing me. Don't look at me. I was about to snap. I no longer had the stomach to take another look behind me. I stumbled my way to the school gate. The bell still hadn't rung yet. I was on the verge of being tardy, but I could still see the other students here and there. Just looking at another person was enough to make me flinch. But if I didn't go in the building, I wouldn't be able to find Kozapi. Steeling myself, I entered the school grounds. When I heard something once again. But it wasn't a wheelchair this time. It was a cell phone shutter. My gaze shot all around myself. Who the hell? Who'd taken the photo? Nobody was looking at me. Nobody had a cell phone out. What the fuck? What the fucking fuck? I covered my ears, and without looking where I was going, I bolted. Heading to the roof, I take it? Without stopping even once, I finally made it to the classroom. Well, it's been longer than 10 minutes, and Takumi didn't approach Kozapi how I expected him to. Needless to say, that's definitely not going to happen, even now, I think. So, I was totally off the mark with my prediction. Isn't the first time, and I doubt it'll be the last either. Without stopping even once, I finally made it to the classroom. or he's just going to the classroom. I was about to burst into the room, only to frantically stop dead in my tracks and turn right back around. The class Dokuns were all assembled in there. The second my eyes had met one of them, I'd given up completely on going in. God damn it. This world was plagued with my enemies. Every single person was my enemy. All of you should die. Every fucking last one of you should just die. Since I couldn't go in the room, I opted to just turn around and keep walking. Maybe a delusion or two about massacring these Dokun pieces of shit would cheer me up. I only glanced in the room, but I hadn't seen Kozupi. Actually, there hadn't been any girls in the classroom at all. That was pretty strange, actually. But I still couldn't care less. All I cared about was figuring out where the hell Kozupi had wandered off to. All the times for her to completely disappear on me. It just had to be now. I was still wheezing from before, my breath violently forcing itself in and out of my lungs. When they saw me like that, the other students walking down the hall stopped and stared. Don't look at me. That sound again. Looking back, I saw 4 Dokun guys I hadn't noticed before. They all had the biggest smirks on their faces. Each one of their cell phones trained on me. Don't look at me! Ignore them, because we can just kill them later on. A delusion like that sounded so exhilarating. Every last one of them dying a horrible death. I'd had fucking enough of this world! Kozupi was still nowhere to be found. I had no clue where she was. Maybe she just hadn't come to school today? But if that was the case, then what was I supposed to do? I really doubted I could fend off Shogun's attempts to break me, especially for a whole day. I'd been pretending to be tough inside my head this whole time, but my knees were still shaking uncontrollably. And if I didn't stay focused for even 1 second, I'd likely sink to the floor and stay there. Kozupi, where did you go? Where the hell did you go? Please, just save me. Startled, I stopped dead in my tracks. I heard a voice. A voice in my head that felt like it come from right next to me. Someone's inner voice. Kozupi, where are you? Looking around, I saw Kozupi squatting near a corner by the entrance, cradling her head. The moment I saw her, a gasp forced its way from my mouth. Her entire body was a deep crimson, as if waves of red from an ocean of blood had crashed down upon her. No, it wasn't simply as if. She was undeniably covered in a ridiculous amount of blood. I wanted to scream, but my voice had stopped working. Kozupi, say something! Kozupi! When I called out to her with my inner voice, Kozupi slowly raised her head. Tears were flooding from her eyes, leaving them red and congested. Without getting up from the ground, she grabbed onto my shirt. She clung to me, as if her life depended on it.
何を
匠さんはコズピンの敵味方
What's that supposed to mean? I tried to ask again, but she just buried her face in my chest and shook her head from side to side. The reddish-black blood coating her entire body seeped into my uniform and slowly spread through it. I never realized how small Kozubi truly was. Her body was so fragile, it felt like I might break it at any moment. Only when I embraced her had I finally come to realize this.
僕はコズピーの味方だ。だからコズピーに助けてもらいたい。
I only said what was on my mind. I was being fairly selfish, but Kozubi was the only one I could turn to.
コズピーのこといじめない？
I'm not going to be a bully to you. The guys bullying me are my main concern. That's what's more important here anyway. I need your protection. She's covered in head to toe in blood and is emotionally distraught. And you're still concerned about Shogun? Get your priorities straight, man. Like, come on.
コズピーは守れないよ。
What do you mean? You have a D sword.
だってあの子のことうまく扱えないもん。
Him? What, your D sword? As I asked that inside my head, Kozubi nodded. She then nestled further into me.
だからね、さっきのドカバキクシャーはコズピーのせいじゃ。
Without warning, I was hit with a fierce impact. Images burst into my mind like an intense montage of flashbacks. The school, its rooftop, the fierce, rusty smell of blood. A sea of blood. Endless chunks of meat strewn across the concrete. Disconnected, disjointed hunks of flesh I couldn't identify. And Kosubi standing in the middle of it all, her breathing heavy, and a D-sword in her hand. You know, I just thought of something. How come the police haven't been called yet? How come none of the other students have found her in this state and started freaking out and causing a mass panic on the school grounds yet? I think it'd be pretty damn hard to miss even a tiny girl like her, covered literally in head to toe in blood, and following said trail of blood to the rooftop, or just... Why has nobody else other than Takumi noticed this yet? Wait a minute. Unless... Well, no. No. If everybody in the school was being brainwashed or attacked by a silent weapon like a Noah 2 terminal, I'd be hearing it in the background right now. At least I would think. So I guess I can rule that out. So I guess I'm back to square one of this, wondering how the hell this is even possible. I then snapped back to myself, shocked. What the hell was that? That had definitely been the school rooftop. But what were all those other images? Had they just been a delusion? But they had been different from how my delusions usually were. Maybe it had been my delusion, but Kozupi's? I felt like Sena had said something about how Gigalomaniacs can make other people see their negative delusions. So maybe that was what had happened. But placing that aside for now, Kozupi's blood-stained body clung to me. The blood on her was still wet. There were no signs that she'd been hurt, and she certainly wasn't acting like she had been. Therefore, the blood wasn't hers. I was trying my absolute hardest to conjure up an explanation for the amount of blood she was bathed in. There was nothing normal about this. It was utterly insane. Whose blood was this? Kosubi, whose blood is this?
コズピーをね、いじめた人たち。
Kosubi hung her head. She gently detached from me, then looked away as if she was in trouble. She raised her index finger to her lips. To me, it looked like she was sulking about something. Or like she was lapping up the blood on her finger. Isn't that someone else's blood?
他人の血だよ。
A feeling of dread surged up within me. Kosubi, if that really is the case, you went way, way too far, didn't you? The school bell rang loudly, telling us homeroom had started. There wasn't a single sign of any students around us. They had already gone to class. Well, I guess that answers that question. Everyone else is in class right now, so nobody's wandering the halls. And so, I made up my mind and began to head straight for the classroom. You're just gonna head to the classroom? Under these circumstances? What the hell is wrong with you? Trying my best to not get caught, I stealthily peeked in from the window.
これって
And what I saw left me shocked. Homeroom had already started, with the teacher standing at the front of the room. And just like I'd seen before, not a single girl was present inside the classroom. Oh, wait a minute, you're checking to see who's there, aren't you? Never mind, I take it back, Takumi. I guess maybe you do have your priorities somewhat straight right now. No way. I had to be sure. I had to be absolutely sure that it had all just been a delusion. I took off for the roof, then flung open a door leading to it. The first thing that hit me was the somber blue sky. And the next was nothing but pure crimson. A literal sea of blood. When hit with the remains of that horrifying scene, the physiological revulsion, the utter repulsiveness, and the overpowering stench, it all pulled together, and I could no longer keep the contents of my stomach from emptying across the concrete. Well, that's not good. You're going to leave behind some forensic evidence for the detectives to find. But then again, since Sua is part of the investigation team, nothing's going to really come of it. So, never mind. I guess you're safe after all, Takumi.
たくみさんはコズピーの味方だよね。
I jumped. When I turned around, Kosubi was standing right in front of me. Tears were welling up in the corners of her eyes. Still soaked in blood, she turned to me and smiled an innocent smile. I couldn't help but run away. I was afraid of Kozupi, for smiling in that situation, for killing them so brutally. I couldn't comprehend it. The people that had been there weren't people anymore. They were in pieces, and she'd done that to them. The scene on the rooftop had been burned into my mind and refused to leave. It repeated endlessly, looping over and over again in my head. And each time it did, I was hit with the utmost intense feeling of nausea. I lost count of how many times I dry heaved. I ran all around the school with no real destination in mind. Homeroom was already started, so there was no one in the halls. Kosubi wasn't following me. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Was running away the smart thing to do? Or should I have stayed with her? If Kosubi saw me as an enemy because I'd run away, would I be fucked? If she started thinking of me as an enemy, would she tear me into pieces like she had with those girls on the rooftop? Oh God, no. Please, no! But if that was true, what should I have done? Even if I went back to Kosubi now, I'd have no idea what to do or say. Well, if nothing else, she certainly can't stay here at the school. That's for sure. Especially as she is now. First off, she needs to get rid of all the blood that's on her body and in her clothes. I just kept on running and running, almost tripping every couple of seconds. In the very next corner I went around, I very nearly ran right into two people. It was Misumi-kun, together with one of the Dokuns from my class who made fun of me earlier. Oh, hey, Misumi, one of your girls is dead. Just thought I'd let you know that. He looked at me with clear unease, while the Dokun stepped in front of me, blocking my path. The Dokun had the most malicious grin on his face.
Yo, Espa. お前、ちょっと超能力使ってくんね?
Do they not notice the blood on him? I bit my lip. I didn't make eye contact. If I did, I knew I'd get punched right there and then. The Dokun made no moves to take out his cell phone. If he did, however, I very well might have lost it and killed him. Just like Kosubi had with those girls. Kill them how? You don't even have your sword.
クラスの女子が授業をボイコットしたみたいだよ。誰も来ねえから、俺ら今探してるわけよ。でもだるいと思うね。ミスミやミナコが心配みてえだけどよ。どうせ集団でサボってるだけだろ。そう思うよな、エスパー。
I didn't respond. And as a result, a sharp pain ran through me as he kicked me in the hip.
おい、シカトしてんじゃねえよ。やめろよ。
The second Misumi-kun spoke up, the Stokun stopped dead in his tracks.
タク、ミナコ見なかったか。チャイム鳴るまでいたんだけどよ。今はメールしても電話しても帰ってこねえんだ。
Well, if you go to the roof, you might be able to find her a little bit over here, a little bit over there. You know. I couldn't tell him. I couldn't tell him about the tragedy that happened on the rooftop. I had no idea who Minako was, but I assumed she was Misumi-kun's girlfriend. Could she have been among the tattered pieces of meat scattered across the rooftop? Seriously, does neither of these two notice the blood on his uniform? And what about Rimi? Had Kosubi killed her too? She shouldn't have. Rimi had been missing for a while, and she hadn't been at school either. Really, I couldn't believe I was still worrying about her after everything that happened. What the hell was I even expecting her to do? She was never going to come back anyway, so what was even the point? I'm sure she'll come back towards the very end of this route, like she's done with all the other heroines' routes so far, to either save our ass from danger, provide some exposition, or some combination of the two, and then just promptly vanish into the ether as quickly as she came.
No, Espa. お前なんで服に血がついてんだ?
About damn time somebody noticed! A shudder ran through me. It was blood from when Kosubi had clung to me. It had transferred from her onto me, and now it fully covered the edge of my shirt. Misumi-kun's eyes widened, and he gasped.
タク、何かあったのか?
何もないよ。
The second that left my mouth, I whipped around and ran away as fast as I could. I heard a voice calling after me, but I ignored it. This is not going to bode well for you, Takumi. Even with Suwa on the investigation team covering for you, so to speak. I bolted down the stairs. Timber! But in my chaotic frenzy, I lost my footing and tumbled all the way down the landing. As I lay there on the ground, I lost all will to stand back up again. Would I ever be able to find peace again? Why did all these insane, horrific things keep happening to me, one after the other? Because you're special!
Taku.
Well, speak of the pink-haired devil. A voice called my name. I only knew a single girl that called me that. I slowly, timidly, looked up and saw a hand stretched out before me.
どうしたの？そんなに慌てて。どこか怪我してない？
What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be giving Shogun some attention right now or something? It was Rimi. Rimi was here.
Rimi. 僕は
I felt tears starting to well up. Not wanting to embarrass myself, I fought them back and took the hand she was offering to me. It was so very warm. Rimi pulled me to my feet.
本当に大丈夫？かなり派手に転んでたけど。
She brushed off my clothes, not leaving a single spot on me untouched.
Rimi. どこへ?
Where had she been for all this time? Why hadn't she contacted me? She said she would protect me.
ああ、私は今日は遅刻。
That didn't answer my question. When I saw that confused airhead smile of hers, my fear ever so slightly subsided. That smile had saved my life many times before. And when I saw it, I no longer had any need to ask her where she'd been, or what she'd been doing. I didn't need to ask her why she hadn't contacted me. Rimi had come back to me, and everything would be okay now. No matter what enemy I might come to face, Rimi would protect me. You know, I guess I can say at this point my expectations has been thoroughly subverted. Rimi is showing up in this route a lot earlier than I was expecting, or at least that's what it feels like to me right now. Or is this route already about to end soon? Or would she? Would she truly protect me? Had Kosubi really just so happened to not kill Rimi? A flicker of doubt appeared in the corner of my mind. It rose up in me like a passing thought. She had been absent for all this time, but she just so happened to come back today? And then she just so happened to be late to school on the day she just so happened to come back? And then Kosubi just so happened to commit murder on the same day Rimi just so happened to come in late? I think I know what you're gonna think. They tag-teamed! No, don't think about it. Stay positive. I rub my temples with my fingers, trying to calm myself down. Uh-oh, I hear a pursuer.
なんだか具合も悪そうだね。保健室に連れてってあげる。そこで少し休んだ方がいいよ。
Don't you notice the blood on his uniform? As she said that, Rimi pulled me by my hand.
ほら、行こう。
Did Rimi not know about the tragedy that happened on the rooftop? But wasn't it only natural? She had said she'd been tardy today. And the fact that she didn't dare ask about the blood on my clothes was just her being considerate to me. It had to be. No, I think she's just trying to get your mind off things. Okay, I guess those footsteps were ours then. Rimi attempted to pull my reluctant self down the stairs, but I planted my feet right before the entrance.
ドッグ?
She kept on trying to pull me along, pretty forcefully too, but I gently shook her hand off. Turning left in this hallway would bring us to the staff room, and after that, the school nurse's office. From there, if we kept going straight and exited at the end of the hall, we'd end up at the sports court outside, after which would be the school gate. I didn't want to see anyone today if I could help it. I didn't even want to walk through the school. Someone was going to find that slaughter up on the rooftop at any moment. And when they did, a huge panic would break out. I'd probably end up being the prime suspect, since my clothes were caked with blood and all. You're forgetting Orihara. That's why I wanted to get away from the school as soon as possible. I should just avoid the nurse's office and go straight to the entrance. I planned to tell Rimi about the rooftop in Kozupi, but when I turned around... Uh-oh, they're real booted too. I smell trouble. Rimi was holding something sharp and pointed. No. Was that a D-sword? It looked like a pair of steel wings. And the tips of the wings were pointed straight at me. Rimi was about to stab me in the back any moment now. Our eyes met. Rimi's eyes were filled with grief. She was the first to break eye contact.
ごめんね。
Softly murmuring those few words, she brandished her sword. She was about to kill me. Rimi was about to kill me. Wow, this is also subverting my expectations too. I lost control. The second she was about to swing, I gripped her waist to protect myself. I was a lazy piece of shit, and I practically never exercised, yet I still had enough strength to overpower her.
なんでだよ!
This bitch. In the end, had Rimi just been another enemy? Had she been lying to me the whole time? Just like Yua had back then. Was she just trying to fuck me over too? Rimi was also one of Shogun's underlings. And if she was his underling, did that mean she had been behind Nugen the whole entire time? And I'd been right from the very start?
なんでこんな...
ごめん。でも、タクには消えてもらうしかないの。
That decided it. There was no misunderstanding here. Rimi really was my enemy. This was her true nature. All that shit about protecting me had been nothing but a lie.
嘘だ。こんなの嘘だ。
嘘ついて。ごめん。でもお願い。タク、消えて。
避けるな、ふざけるなよ。僕がどれだけリミのことを信用してたと思ってるんだ。どれだけリミを頼りにしてたと思ってるんだ。なんでそんな簡単に人を裏切れるんだよ。この悪魔女め。
タク、ごめん。
ごめんで済むかよ。何様だよ。
I realized I was crying. A betrayal like this. I couldn't. The pure rage and frustration I was feeling right now. What I had felt with Yua didn't even come close. Rimi had shit all over the feelings I had for her. I'll never forgive you. 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 I'm gonna kill you. I'll never forgive you. I'm gonna kill you. I'll never forgive you. I'll never forgive you. I'm gonna kill you. Gripping her wrist even tighter, Rimi's expression contorted in agony. But the pain I felt was far worse. You tore my heart to fucking shreds. I'll never forgive you. I could never fucking forgive you. I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna fucking kill you. I'm gonna fucking... Oh dear. It happened in an instant. Right before my very eyes, Rimi's figure vanished. Her body was blown to the side toward the shoe lockers and slammed right into them. She'd been done from the moment she'd hit the metal lockers, obliterating them in the process. A thick cloud of dust enveloped the room. At first, I had no idea what the hell had happened.
Takumi-sanの心の叫びね。聞こえたよ。
Right before me, brandishing her D-sword, was Kozupi. Her expression was incredibly pained. Sweat shone on her forehead, and yet, even despite those things, she still forced herself to smile at me.
殺したいって、許せないって。だから、殺してあげたのら。
Her inner voice threw all of that at me.
殺した。本当に殺し。
Unable to believe what I'd just seen, I approached the demolished shoe lockers. The D-sword that had used to be Rimi's brushed against the tip of my shoe. It was lying on the floor, deprived of its owner. Liquid slowly pooled beneath the sword. Blood. Whose blood was it? I didn't have to think long to know. Eventually, the D-sword by my feet was enveloped by countless black particles and vanished into the air. Rimi was dead? Just like that? Yeah, apparently just like that. You're not the only one who's surprised. Believe me. I didn't have the slightest urge to confirm it. Sadness washed over me, and at the same time, I was left with an inescapable sense of regret. I had killed my own emotions deep down. Had my feelings numbed me to everything? Or had I numbed my feelings to everything? It didn't matter anymore. At least the tears had stopped falling.
Kozupi, 僕を助けて。
Right now, Kozupi was the only one I could depend on. Even though Rimi had betrayed me, I still wanted someone to believe in. Or maybe I just wanted someone I could be with. Someone who would accept me. All that stuff about wanting to be protected, it was all just an excuse. I didn't want to be alone. Even if she might betray me. Even if I had been betrayed already. I didn't want to be alone. I couldn't bear all this awful bullshit on my own. If I was on my own, I guarantee I would cease to be me. I would just up and disappear. I approached Kozupi, desperate for someone to cling to. When I looked at her, what I saw was how terribly sad she looked. The sheer pain on her face. Her smile had long since disappeared. I made up my mind and embraced her tiny shoulders. She didn't fight it.
さっきはコズピーから逃げたのに。
ごめんなさい。それでも助けてくれ。
たくみちゃんはコズピーの味方？
Who could say how many people Kozupi had already killed? Who could say what would happen if the police caught us? Knowing all that, would it really turn out okay if the two of us stayed together? I asked myself such a question, but it didn't take long for me to find my answer. Right now, I was together with Kozupi, and as long as we stayed together, it would all turn out okay. We had bigger enemies than the police. Enemies that were too dangerous to face alone.
僕にはコズピーが必要だ。一緒にいたい。
たくみちゃんは身勝手な人なの。
That he is. Upon saying that, she wrapped her arms around my back. With the little strength she had left, she held me in return.
でもね、コズピーのこと必要って言ってくれたから、コズピーもたくみちゃん一生懸命守る。前に汚いおじさんが言ってたのら、我慢することないって、負の感情を否定しちゃダメって。だからコズピーをいじめる人みんな殺すね。それとたくみちゃんをいじめる人も。
Feelings, both cold to the touch and warm as the sun, found their way from her to me. Feelings inside her that contradicted. Madness. Kindness. Whether it was the same way her inner voice could reach me, it was all in my head, I didn't know. Oh dear. Looks like they've been discovered. Whether it be the pair of them, they, the corpses on the roof, or they, as in both of them really, both the pair and the corpses. Either way, something has been discovered, and I think it's not going to bode well for us. Right as that thought drifted through my mind, a girl's scream echoed throughout the school grounds. It had come from the top of the building. Well, I guess that answers that question. Has she found the slaughter on the rooftop? Most likely. We had to run. Kozupi, if we stay here, the police will catch us. For some reason, the moment I let go of her body, she immediately sank to the ground. What's wrong?
すごく てるのな。体だるいの。ねえたくみさん、コズピーね、心の中に真っ黒黒な妄想がどんどん生まれてくるよ。押しつぶされちゃいそうなの。
Blackiest black delusions? What do you mean? Regardless of what she meant, staying here wasn't an option. With Rimi's corpse lying here, anyone who spotted us would find out exactly what we'd done. So without getting an answer from her, I lent Kosuke my shoulder, and the two of us began to leave the school. We walked through the halls. As nice as it would have been to just leave, we were both covered in blood. Kosuke couldn't walk in her current state, and I had a feeling that if we went outside, we'd get hit with the cops all waiting for us out there cliché. Well, even if you didn't, you're both covered in blood, so someone on the streets would spot you, and, well, they'd call the cops on you for sure. You gotta do something about the blood that's covering the both of you before you can even think of leaving. It was probably best to just hide out somewhere. Even one of the empty classrooms would probably work. I don't think so. The atmosphere was tense. The scream earlier kickstarted a slowly growing commotion inside the school. Teachers quickly ran by us in a hurry. Students left their classrooms, ignoring that homeroom was still in session, and cautiously peered around the school to try and see what had happened. Shit, there were a lot of people. Maybe it would have been better to just leave after all. We had to hide somewhere. Somewhere like... There it was again. That noise again. Stop it. Just stop it. I was gonna go fucking insane. A few students spotted me just from a distance. Oh shit. And not just students, but a few teachers too. Every single one of them had their cell phones out and were aiming them at us. And for some reason, they were all holding mirrors in their other hands. I don't hear a NOAA 2 terminal right now. Interesting. Coupled with a black wrath, an infernal bloodlust sprouted inside my head. Something within me was about to snap. Perhaps emboldened by my bloodlust, Kosuke's heart reeked of its own hunger for blood. Kosuke was reacting to the mirrors. Despite the fact that she was having so much trouble walking, she raised her D-sword overhead anyway. Kosuke, don't do it! Clutching her petite frame, I tried to hold her back. But I couldn't do it. Kosuke's body freed itself from me with tremendous force. Pulled along by her sword, Kosuke charged the group holding my mirrors. Like, okay, talk to me. I know you're a wimp and everything, but she's the smallest of all the heroines in stature. Surely even you should be able to hold her, if you really tried. Just how fucking weak are you? Her legs tangled with one another. She nearly slipped and fell. And yet, she still managed to move forward and swung her enormous D-sword. Oh, fucking hell. And with a single swing, she had claimed about 4 human lives. It was a staggering storm of destruction and brutality. Her movements and posture were like a novice's. If she leaned back any further, she'd fall over. And yet, her sword's trajectory was both abnormally accurate and fast. I knew that the last episode was going to be the proverbial calm before the storm, but I didn't think the storm would manifest quite like this. Like, holy shit. This whole thing's starting to turn into a literal bloodbath. Her aim was precise as she claimed each and every one of their lives with a single blow each. Almost like she wasn't the one swinging the sword. The sword was the one swinging her. As she bathed in the fountains of blood, Kozubi began to cower.
死ねばいいのだみんな殺したくない剣が勝手に剣に依存しちゃえばいいのだこれがコズピーの本性なのかな
I could hear Kosubi's current mental state. Her mind was in total disarray, a total chaotic mess. I lent my shoulders to Kosubi once more and climbed the stairs along with her. Well, I think this is the first time I've ever seen this sprite from Misumi. But the very next moment, we ran into Misumi-kun and the other Dokyun coming down the stairs. Shit, these guys again. I bit my lip. Well, Misumi, I have a feeling you're not gonna be long for this world for much longer. So it's been nice knowing you, but well, at least on the plus side, I won't have to worry about being utilized by you anymore. Backstabber.
おいおい、こいつら血まみれじゃねえか。
For a split second, the Dokyun who spoke was taken aback. But the very next one, Misumi-kun grabbed me by my chest. His face was teeming with fury.
おかよ。お前らが殺したのかよ、ミナコ。
Seriously, who the hell was Minako? Noticing my confusion, the Dokyuns held Misumi-kun back.
まあ待てよミスミ、まだそうと決まったわけじゃねえだろ。だいたいあんなことよりによってこの二人ができるわけねえって。
All that. They were definitely talking about the slaughter on the roof.
それよりよエスパー、
僕はエスパーじゃん。
うるせえよ、口答えすんなカス。
I tried to tell him I wasn't an Esper, but he wasn't having any of it. His threat caused me to shrink back. Feeling unbelievably pathetic, I began to wonder if Kosubi would murder everyone here if I wanted her to. Probably.
殺してもいいよ。やだ、殺したくない。
Kosubi's mind was a chaotic mess of conflicting, contradictory emotions.
殺せない。殺すことも受け入れるべきなの。
Should she just give in? That was one thing I could never do.
でよエスパー、お前の妹ってお前に似合わず可愛いんだな。ナナミだっけ？
And why bring her up, buddy? What? Why hell does Doku know about NOZOMI?
だからよ、ちょっと可愛がってやったんだよ。
What did you do?
何や言って。
わかんねえの？
Yes, please do. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, you see. Please, by all means, enlighten me. Spell it out for me, letter by letter. I want to know exactly what you mean. so I can figure out what you deserve. The Dokyun, acting far too friendly of me, placed his hand on my shoulder. Even though he was a guy, he was covered with the smell of perfume. The smell was so strong it made me want to vomit.
俺の連れ、だいたい10人くらいでいつもつるんでるんだけどな。ちょっと暇してたわけよ。で、女ナンパするかって話になった時によ、提供してくれたんだよね。お前の妹。
You know, I'm actually impressed that you feel the need here to brag to me about this shit, considering present circumstances in the school right now. You sure got your priorities straight, don't you, buddy?
提供って
Nanami wasn't some fucking object to be offered. What the hell had they done to her? No, wait, no. More importantly, who the hell had offered them Nana?
ダーススパイダーだよ。
You know, it's at moments like these where I wish I could kill that son of a bitch myself. Fuck you, Suwa. All words left me.
わざわざ向こうから声かけてきてよ。お前の妹を好きにしていいとか言って渡してきたんだよね。マジでウケるだろ?
And you just went along with it, huh? Okay, in all due seriousness, there is the chance that they were also influenced by his Noah 2 terminal. So they were brainwashed into gang raping her, which I'm assuming is what's going on here. In which case, well, in a way, I could say you're victims too, to be fair. But your attitude about it after the fact, though, is making it really, really, really fucking hard for me to feel sorry for you. Because, at least in regards to what I suspect is going to happen to you within the next few minutes. My vision turned bright red. Within my mind, it felt as if my blood was boiling. It billowed and bubbled, rising up to my head like magma.
ナナミに何を?
あ? だから可愛がってやったっつってんだろ? そうそう。妹さ、片手なかったぜ。痛そうだったな。
That had all been real? When I come home afterward to check, I hadn't been able to find that damn hand. So that was why.
なあ、ミスミ。お前も教えてやれよ。お前だってあの場にいたんだからよ。
You were there too, huh, Misumi?
それよりミナコ!
Forget that shit. Forget that shit! What the fuck could possibly be more important? My sister is what matters here, you piece of shit! Don't you fucking dare compare that fucking horse cunt to Minako, to my precious little sister!
そうそうそう、記念に写真撮っといたぜ。なあ、エスパーも見てえか？見せてやるよ。
I'll fucking kill you.
画像っと。あった、これ。ほら、見ろよ、エスパ
ー。The Dokyun grabbed me by the jaw and forced me to look at the image. The photograph was definitely Nanami, but she was covered in blood. Her eyes were hollow, and she was completely naked. Oh, for fucking kill you. I'll 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 fucking kill you. The knife I'd been gripping dug itself deep into that Dokyun bastard's chest. I brought it with me today just in case I needed it. Apparently, I myself had stabbed him. Say your prayers, fucker. I pulled it out, then stabbed him with it again. And then, I did it again.
おい、やめろタク。
うるさい。
I pulled it out, then stabbed it back in.
泉、お前も死ねばいいんだ。僕もナナミを、世界中の全員が死ねばいいんだ。僕が殺してやんよ。
I pulled it out and stabbed it back in. Then again. Then again. The Dokyun wasn't moving anymore. With his eyes open wide and his mouth drooling blood, he was very much dead.
ねえ、コズピー。全員、撃ち殺してよ。
With a sad look on her face, Cosby nodded. Her D-sword rose in her hand. It reel-booted with a furious, resonant noise. And then Misumi-kun could only stare in shock at the abrupt embodiment of mayhem.
Huh?
With a single swipe, Misumi-kun's head was blown clean off. She had swung her sword so violently she lost her balance and fell right on her ass. Misumi's collapsing body then fell on top of her, soaking her clothes with blood. Despite looking wholly miserable, she pushed the corpse aside, and then she looked at me and smiled.
匠さんも殺しちゃったね。
Was she crying, suffering, or simply smiling? Within her pained smile was a mix of so many different emotions.
なんで敵だらけなんだろう。もうやだ。
She was sobbing inside her heart. But it was just as she'd said. We had enemies everywhere, so we had no choice but to kill them. That was what they all deserved. I wasn't the one in the wrong here. The pieces of shit that I attacked were. It was payback for what they'd done to Nanami. Nanami. Was she still alive? With all that blood, she was probably long dead. That and her severed hand. There was no way she was alive. They would never get away with this. I'd make fucking sure of it. I've been on the run for so long, but that ended here. I would kill every last one of them. Every last one! When I'd seen that horrible, cruel image of Nanami, something inside me snapped. And now, there would be no stopping me. I hope you're proud of yourself, you smug son of a bitch. You've done it. You broke them. You broke them hard. You reap what you sow. And I have a feeling that this is a fruit from a tree that you are not going to be able to handle. Mamoru stood before the gate of the Sume Private Academy, gazing intently at the building. The car he had driven there sat alongside the gate, along with his back leaning up against it. Although he wore a suit, a rucksack adorned his back as well. Emanating from within it was a bizarre, mechanical sound. The atmosphere within the school was one of an intense, bubbling tumult, one Suwa could feel even from where he stood. The pure hilarity of it all left Suwa unable to contain his laughter. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying yourself, because I have a feeling this is going to be the last little sideshow that you're ever going to be able to enjoy.
今日こそ西条匠のコードサンプルを手に入れなきゃっすからね。
His utterance was not directed at anyone in particular, and was heard only by himself. Around him stood several other men. Unlike Suwa, their attire was far more uncouth and casual, though they all carried rucksacks just as he did. They were all very evidently suspicious, with their eyes remained glued to the school, and speaking not a word to each other. All that seeped from their mouths were the same mutterings as Suwa, spoken to no one but themselves.
そのためにこの学校を実験場にしたんすから。もともとここはそのためにNOZOMIが作ったんすけどね。
Can't exactly say I'm surprised that the school was just one big testing ground for NOZOMI. Somehow. Sume Private Academy had been founded on an institution backed by both NOZOMI technology and the Cosmic Church of the Divine Light. For this reason, the number of gigalomaniacs enrolled was far higher than normal. So that's how we all ended up in the same school. Well, that actually makes sense then. It all makes sense now. You all made sure that even in a school setting, we would all be gathered in one location where you could monitor them. Their proximity was no mere coincidence. It was simply inevitable that they all had gathered here, and to this they were all none the wiser. Be that as it may, Suwa could not help but let out a faint sigh. Up until this moment, he had employed countless methods of attempting to break Nishijo Takumi. It had all been an attempt to gather Nishijo's code sample, but the boy was a far weaker, far more pathetic person than he had anticipated. And because of this, the boy would never find the motivation to awaken as a gigalomaniac. Never would he have thought that one single boy would be so much trouble. However, this would end today.
もう回りくどいことはなしで、とっておきの祭りを提供してやるっすよ。
There was no doubt that countless innocent people would die here. But the number of deaths hardly mattered. The Cosmic Church of the Divine Light's founder had said so, and Suwa had thus been compelled to believe so. In the end, it really did not matter. The third melt would bring Shibuya to ruin this very day. No matter how many high schoolers died, they would be treated as sacrifices lost in the earthquake, and the truth of this day would be buried beneath the rubble. None would ever know of the murders that occurred here.
さてと、じゃあ行きますかね。
Suwa opened the trunk of his car and retrieved his Darth Spider helmet. He put it on slowly and deliberately. When it stood alongside his suit and rucksack, the Darth Spider helmet made Suwa appear all the more conspicuous. But it was not something that even remotely bothered him. With an air of utter composure, he advanced into the school. And upon Suwa's signal, the men with the rucksacks followed, closely behind him, remaining in complete, utter silence. I lent my shoulder to Kozue, and two of us left for the courtyard. Oh, hey! I was wondering where you were. And when we got there, Sena was waiting for us. She was glaring at us with a harsh scowl on her face. I think she knows what we did. Her D-sword was out, reel-booted and emitting a red beam of light.
お前たちはバカだ。
We may be fools, but, well, a lot of our victims were major assholes, so, yeah. Don't think you can fault us too much for it, all things considered.
罠にはめられているんだ。すべて精神攻撃だ。その影響でみんなおかしくなっているに過ぎない。真の悪に気づけ。元凶を叩かなければ悪夢は終わらない。ポーターだ。リュックを背負っている奴らがどこかにいるはず。そいつらが妄想攻撃を。
セナちゃんはコズピーの味方だよね。
コズ？
真の悪って何？その影響があるから何なのかな。コズピーとタクミさんを攻撃してきたゴキさんたちはね、自動的に敵だよ。だから殺すの。殺したくない。
The voice in Kozupi's head wasn't making any sense. Her mind was a chaotic mess.
それが敵の思うツボなんだ。
みんなでストーカーしてくるんだもん。怖いんだもん。コズピーでなくなっちゃいそうになるんだもん。
I felt the same. The click of the camera shutters, the creaking of the wheelchair. Just hearing those things made me feel like my mind itself was disintegrating. I just wanted to let myself go, surrender to that oh so enticing bloodlust. Or maybe I already had.
お前たちは何と戦っているのか把握しているのか？
I didn't know who the enemy was. I didn't know anything at all, really. Was my enemy Shogun, or was it someone else? I didn't even know who was attacking who anymore. What I could say for sure, though, was that everyone and everything in this world was against me. Yeah, it's official. He's completely lost it.
妄想に惑わされるな。お前たちは自分の妄想によって殺されようとしている。小杖、それ以上ディソードを使うんじゃない。負の物質がお前の心と体を侵食しているんだ。まともに歩けなくなっているんだろ。このままだとお前という存在が崩壊する。
セナちゃんはコズピーたちの味方？
The voice sounded like it was begging for salvation. Cosby pleaded for an answer once more. I too waited with bated breath to see what Sena might say. I wasn't expecting anything. I really wasn't, but...
私はお前たちの味方だ。
Sena answered decisively.
お前たちを攻撃している敵は私が倒す。だからもう妄想するな。
I was saved. I had someone on my side besides Kozupi. Another friend. Kozupi slowly lowered her sword.
よかった。セナちゃん、大好きなのら。
Tears began to form in the corners of her eyes. Kozupi's gaze clung to Sena like a lost puppy. Oh, crap. What now? Without warning, Kozupi swung her D-sword. Oh. Sena instinctively deflected the blow of her own. Oh, thank God. However, the shock of the attack was enough to blow her backward, and she fell to the ground.
風何を
コズピー
Seiya made clear she was on her side. Why are you trying to kill her? Crying out in her inner voice, she swung the sword up past her head and held it above Sena. She swung down with the intent to kill. With only a nanosecond to spare, Sena rolled across the ground, just barely avoiding being cleaved in two. Quickly getting back to her feet, she brandished her D-sword once again.
私を殺すつもりか小杖
Crying profusely, Cosby shook her head back and forth wildly in fierce denial. What the hell was happening to her? Seriously, what the fuck was going on?
負の妄想に取りつかれてしまっている自分でディソードを制御できていないのか
So she really wasn't in control? Damn. So against Cosby's own will, she was now an indiscriminate killing machine?
小杖ディソードを消せこいつ
殺す殺す殺す殺す殺す殺す殺す殺す殺す
A voice spoke. But it wasn't her inner voice. It was Cosby's actual voice. Chanting kill to no end. The exact opposite of what her inner voice wanted.
Sena, コズピを助けてあげてよ
All I could do was beg from the sidelines. There was no way I could have walked into the middle of the fray.
妄想を見せて無力化を
Cosby launched an unrelenting attack. But all she was doing was barreling around for D-sword. It was a purely brutish attack with no aim. One only a total idiot would use.
殺したくないのにセナさんのこと殺したくないのに
Despite her body staggering around, despite her feet drunkenly stumbling, despite her gaze not even facing Sena, Cosby's sword headed straight towards Sena without fail, doing everything in its power to rip her in two.
殺す殺すぶち殺すぶち殺してやる
Lashing out at her with nothing but nonsensical attacks, her assault continued. Each and every swing was extremely heavy, yet sharp as could be. Sena was pressed for time. Her expression grew restless. The swords mutually clashed with one another. Sena repelled her blow, breaking Cosby's guard. But in Cosby's counterattack, her D-sword seemed to disregard the very laws of physics themselves. Thick blood sprayed from her slender body.
それは妄想だ
Sena cut around and made her way back to Cosby's back. The once bloody corpse of Sena vanished. Taking advantage of Cosby's shock, Sena managed to pin her arms behind her back.
ディソードを捨てろ小杖
離せ離せ離せ離せ離せ離せ殺してコズピーのこと殺してセナシャンコズピーは悪くないコズピーは悪くないみんなが悪いんだこんな自分もう見たくないセナシャンも殺したくないだから
Kozumi's mind and body were at odds with one another. They had split completely in two. Her small body thrashed around violently in an attempt to break free, but in her mind, she could only weep.
頼む。剣を捨ててくれ、小杖。元に戻ってくれ。私はお前を見捨てたりしない。お前は私のたった一人の友達で。
Tears formed in Seina's eyes. She was crying. Right then, Kozumi's arm made the strangest of movements. Oh shit. She's gonna swing her arm back and it's gonna cut right into her. Bending in a direction that shouldn't have been possible. A dull crack could be heard as her joint dislocated. A muted scream came from her. Before I even knew what happened, Seina, who had been keeping Kozumi pinned, had been impaled from behind by Kozumi's boorish D-sword. The edge gnawed through her, grinding into her flesh like a saw. In the blink of an eye, Seina's clothes were turning a deep crimson. Gritting her teeth in pure anguish, she tried to toss Kozumi aside to put space between them. But she was too late. Kozumi whipped around, then slashed her sword in a straight horizontal line. And the side of Seina's body was torn to pieces. Kozumi turned to Seina, who was writhing in intense agony. And then she thrust her D-sword directly into her.
死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ。
小杖、すまない。すまない。
死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ。
お前のこと助けてやれなくて、私のこと慕ってくれたのに、私はお前の力になれなくて。
死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ。
お前の SOS にもっと早く気づいてあげられたら。小杖と話している時間が私にとって唯一ほっとできる時間だった。
死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ。
慕ってくれてありがとう。
死ね。
What a god-awful mess this has all turned into. I couldn't look straight at it.
死んだの？
She was dead. Seina was dead. Just like everyone else. Even though she'd been our friend. Even though she could have saved me and Kozumi. Kozumi had killed her. The sword remained pierced into our friend's corpse. Kozumi's disjointed arm hung down lifelessly. And on her face was a smile, accompanied by a waterfall of tears.
セナちゃん、セナちゃん、返事して。一緒にガルガリ君食べに行こうよ。タクミさんと3人でまた写真撮って、また。
Her heart was crying out in despair.
ねえ、タクミちゃん、セナちゃん、どうして返事してくれないのかな。どうして。
Sena is dead.
殺しちゃった。殺しちゃったよ。
Kospi fell to her knees. With one hand, Kospi softly picked up what was left of Sena's lifeless corpse. What had once been a girl of intense beauty was now smeared from head to toe in blood, with her long black hair covering her face.
コズピーね、こんなこと望んでないのに、望んでなかったのに。セナちゃんのこと好きだったのに、大好きだったのに、お姉ちゃんみたいだなって思ってたのに。なんでコズピーはセナちゃんのことを殺したんだろう。
信仰の救いっすよ。
You really are good at killing, at just being a great mood killer. You know that, Suwa? It's a wonder you haven't been given a gold medal for it. Before I knew it, a man in a Darth Spire helmet had appeared near us, holding a small handgun, pointed directly at us. Darth Spider. I remember what that Dokun had told me before I killed him in a fit of rage. He'd said that Darth Spider had offered NOZOMI to him.
お前か。
さあ、何のことっすか？
He shot me. My leg exploded with pain. The bullet had struck me right in the knee. Kospi's B-sword began to hum. And Darth Spider's helmet was shredded like it was made of paper. It wasn't Shogun's face beneath the mask. Instead, it was the face of a young man. The man retaliated, turning Kospi into a mess of gushing blood and broken bones. And then, Kospi's legs gave out from beneath her.
おっと、殺しはしないっすよ。コードサンプルを取らせてもらわないといけないんで。
Yeah, okay, so you definitely need them alive in order to extract their code samples. So, Suwa, every time that you or any of your cohorts worked against the Giggle Maniacs to try and kill them before obtaining their code samples, I'm just gonna be blunt. You're an idiot. Who was this guy? Who in the hell was this bastard? I couldn't stop thinking that I'd met him somewhere before, but I couldn't remember where. How he had gotten his hands on a gun to begin with. But I did know that this must have been him, the so-called source Sena had mentioned. Was he Shogun's underling? Or was he some other enemy? I didn't know the answers to any of these things, and I didn't need to. Because at the very least, I knew he was the source behind everything. I wanted to kill this bastard so badly. My aching leg was suffering from an incredibly unusual sensation. And for long, I couldn't even stay standing anymore. The next bullet landed in my shoulder. The impact of the shot sent me sprawling to the ground. The bullet dug into my flesh, and the sheer pain and heat made me scream. Next, my arm. I dropped the knife I had been clutching tightly in my fist. My entire body was emitting distress signals. I couldn't even tell where I was being shot anymore. I was dying. This pain was too much for me to take. The man approached me. He peered at my face, then removed something odd from the rucksack he was carrying. It was some sort of headgear, with more cables than I could count. I think I know what this is.
殺す。
何？
殺してやる。
Please do. Behead this bitch. Rising up from the ground, Cosby swayed heavily. She was dragging her leg. Almost having to force herself, she raised her blade.
こいつ、化け物かよ。
Get a mirror. The real monster here is you.
殺してやる。
I heard the sound of the sword cutting through air. It interlaced perfectly with the sound of gunfire. The D-sword utterly crushed the man's body. Good riddance. His final breath soon dissipated, and the man's all too familiar way of speaking would never be heard again. Speak for yourself. I'm going to have to hear this asshole at least a few more times before this whole thing's over. For me. In the other routes, at least. In that sense, you're lucky. Dick. Moaning, Cosby coughed up a spatter of blood. Her chest was dyed a rich vermilion from the bullets of the dead man. And then, as if her strength had been sapped entirely, she collapsed face up onto the flower bed, resting directly behind her. A myriad of black particles began to envelop her D-sword. A hulking mass of sheer mayhem, inspiring awe to all those who beheld it. The truly beautiful, yet fearful blade gradually began to waver.
たくみさん、コズピーね、もうダメみたい。
Bearing the excruciating pain shooting through me, I crawled as best I could to where Kozupi lay. Only a few moments ago, my entire body had been blazing with heat. But now, I felt so terribly cold. It was like I had plunged straight into a lake on a cold winter's day. My whole body, my whole being was shivering with a force I couldn't stop. I couldn't feel my fingers anymore. My vision had gone blurry too. But even so, willing forth all the strength I could muster, I stretched my hand toward the girl laying in a radiant array of brightly colored flowers. My cold fingertips met Kozupi's warm, tender fingers, desperately seeking something to cling to, wishing with all my heart to find it. I draped my fingertips on the top of hers and closed them. I found myself lying in the flower bed, just like Kozupi. The stench of blood was masked perfectly by the rich scent of the flowers. I felt frigid, but found warmth through the soil on my back, as well as Kozupi's fingers. The sky was so very high above us, stretching as far as the eye could see. And for some reason,
ねえねえ、空がとっても綺麗だよ。まるでブチュブチュさんをたくさん散りばめたみたいで。
She was right. The sky we saw shifted hues endlessly. And just like she'd said, it was like there was an array of colorful beads overtaking the sky. From my pocket, I retrieved a cell phone strap that Kozupi had given me some time ago. I'd only just remembered that I'd even had it. The cell phone strap in my palm. I took the cell phone strap in my palm and clasped her hand once more, embracing the strap in the middle. I wasn't strong enough to maintain a solid grip anymore, but it didn't matter.
コズピーもあんな風に空に浮かぶブチュブチュさんになりたいな。
You can. Throw away your piece of shit body. Throw away this piece of shit world. You could be a star if you truly wish to be. If you do that, then you'll never have to worry about pain or sorrow ever again. If you do that, then you'll live in peace and tranquility forever.
たくみさんも一緒に来てくれる？
Of course I will. I'll always be with you. You were the only person who didn't betray me. You were the only person trying as hard as you could for my sake, even until the very end. So I'll never betray you. I'll stay with you, even until the very end.
ありがとう。あのね、コズピー、たくみさんのこと好きになってもいいかな？
Are you trying to leave me a depressed wreck? Because if that's your goal, it's working. I don't mind. My consciousness was fading, but I answered all the same. I realized that the hand I'd been clasping was slowly beginning to lose its warmth. I realized that the strength was slowly fading from the fingers clasping my hand. But I didn't care. I wasn't going to let go of her hand until the very end. I tried my damnedest to hold back the tears I knew would come. The sky I saw turned to pure white. All the clickety-clackities were disappearing. I figured something had happened, but I didn't really care anymore. Relief washed over me. Relief that Kozupi wouldn't have to see the clickety-clackities die out. I gently closed my eyes. In that very moment, time came to a stop. The entire world came to a stop. And so, within that sky, with colors as rich as those beads, Kozupi and I shone as stars, floating in perpetuity. I'm just... What do I even say here? Other than that wouldn't just be me stating the obvious. I can't think of anything in all due seriousness. That was just a mess. And not in a sense to where it was like bad, like from a writing standpoint or anything like that. I mean, it was a mess as in it was just a tragedy all around for everybody involved, except Suwa. And arguably, and I guess arguably, Nanami's rapists. And Misumi too. Kind of. Although I still kind of suspect that they were sort of brainwashed into it a bit. But their attitude after the fact certainly did not help. So, but who knows if they were... But considering that there were multiple porters on the around the perimeter of the school, their minds could have still been... could have still potentially been affected too. So I honestly don't... I honestly don't know how to even feel about them. I really don't. And that's probably the most frustrating part for me when it comes to those guys in particular. I honestly don't know whether I should resent them. I should be glad that they died the way they did. If I should feel sympathy for them as well. Nothing but sympathy for them. Some combination of the two feelings or what? I really don't know how to feel here about those guys. Or what to feel, excuse me. Takumi, Sena, and Kozupi, though, I do know how to feel about them, and I feel like shit. Complete and utter shit. What a miserable way to go. Really, though. I mean, yeah, it was interesting to learn a little bit more, learn some definitive information regarding the school's role and the overall story, and, well, the revelation that, surprise, surprise, every single one of the Gigglomaniacs being congregated in the same damn school was never coincidence. I mean, in hindsight, I guess I really shouldn't be surprised at all by this information. But I guess it was still nice to get confirmation of little details like that all the same. So at least that way I didn't have to speculate about that particular little detail anymore, And I got to see Suwa get murdered again, so that's always a plus. Bastard. But even so, the third melt happened, so clearly Neosei likely still was able to go through with his plan. The world is fucked. And Aoi and Sena, Takumi and Kozupi, they just bit the bucket in arguably the worst way I think I've seen them experience yet. And it just sucks. It just sucks. Just like Todd Howard saying that Bethesda games just work, this ending, it just sucks. What else can I really say about it? Seriously. Ay, ay, ay. Sickness on the slaughter. Got that down. Only 3 left. We've got Ayase, Rimi, and what I'm assuming to be the true ending left to go. We're definitely more than halfway there now. Well, I guess technically from a real-world perspective, when it comes to actual total playtime, we've already been more than halfway there for a while now, to be fair. But, I mean, as far as the ending count and all that is concerned, we're basically at that point now, if we weren't already. But you know what I'm trying to say, I'm sure. You're all smart. Smarter than me. Probably more clever, too. Well, I don't see any reason to change my plan as to who I'm going to be tackling next. So next time we come back, I'm going to be starting Ayase's route next. If there's anybody in particular who I really want to learn about more, it's Ayase for sure. I can't help but wonder what her route will have in store for me. I hope it won't disappoint, whatever it is. Anyway, with all that being said, I hope everybody who tuned in today enjoyed this day's episode of Chaos Head Noah. If you did, and you'd like to see more content from me, feel free to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. And I will see you all next time for our next inevitable dose of tragedy. Take care.